one of the major things that we've been focusing on is how do we solve this confidence problem with generative AI? How can we leverage the technology to extract as much value safely within an enterprise? So if we're starting over here, we're going to work on our journey to get to safe, live, and in production. So the first thing is, imagine you connect to SharePoint or some way you distribute files internally within your company. There's a major issue with inconsistent data. Maybe you have 2 years worth of information that the chatbot will grab, pull back, and then give a nonsensical answer. Maybe there's some data quality issues where something that's confidential was put into a public drive or a shared drive within the company. Normally, no one goes through and reads every single document in SharePoint and finds that confidential information and distributes it. These chatbots will. So when somebody asks a question, they'll get an answer, and it's not information that they want to be distributed. Another is just retrieving the wrong document. If you think about RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, the process where you take your data, run it through an embedding model, put it in a vector store, we can then ask a question, map that in, retrieve some information, and then pass it to a language model to answer. These embedding models tend to be made for all topics, which means if your business makes like one version of some product that like maybe you make detergents, the description of your products are incredibly similar. So when you think about the space covered by that embedding model, all the information's in one corner. So the likelihood you're retrieving the right document gets to be pretty low. So what we've seen so far, proof of concept, trivial. Like I'm sure somebody on the phone somebody with their phone could build a RAG pipeline and get that thing up and running today during this meeting. Like it's incredibly easy to build chatbots. Building one that's safe, like you're going to hit these issues first. And so what we've been trying to focus on are what are the approaches to solve these problems? So when I think about this inconsistent data or pulling back the wrong document, the first thing that's really practical and quite simple, when we retrieve information from the vector store, make sure you track the lineage. What documents did this come from? And then show it to people. Because in an enterprise, it gets a bad answer. They ping the central team managing that service and say, your chatbot's broken. It's actually not broken. It did just what it was supposed to. You can go in and find and say, well, unfortunately, HR policy 1 and 2 are inconsistent. Team, can you help me fix that? It's not the chatbot's problem. Don't go try to fix it. The second is as we're looking at this IP, like you really do need to fine tune the embedding model. This is not hard. You can do it on a laptop. It's very straightforward, but it's something that you need to do for your business and really for each team. And then the last thing, as people are trying to do this, we partner with our customers, and unfortunately, some of them have gone through the process of trying to build their own LLM with their data. Like getting something that can be conversational takes an incredible amount of information. Your product SKUs and product catalog do not have enough information in it to build a chatbot. It's not going to be conversational. So instead of trying to make your own LLM or make one chatbot to do all things, you need to make many chatbots, and it's incredibly easy to put them behind another interface where basically it says which chatbot should answer this question. Like that's a great recipe where then each individual chatbot, you can put around all the guardrails and aspects of making sure it stays on topic, it's not making things up, it's for speaking with the right voice. If I'm writing marketing content, let it be creative. If I'm quoting a contract or a legal document, I don't want it to be creative. So like controlling those for each, like this is another major failure mode for people in the enterprise right now. All right, say you get over all these, and this is an iterative process. You get to production, they turn it on, a month goes by, and then you have your first meeting with the CFO because they say, why do I have a new bill? This costs way too much. Tell me what value I'm getting from this. And unfortunately, most GenAI examples, it's an efficiency play. People are doing things more effectively and more quickly. Turns out saving 2 minutes from 1,000 people is meaningful, but the CFO is not going to care. They're going to tell you, like, where's the actual value coming from, and how do you navigate this cost control? And then they say, you probably don't need to use any of those pieces. Well, you can ask the question, like, what are you basing that on? They're like, well, I want it cheaper, so I'm going to ask you a question you can't answer. At least tell me how you're going to make it cheaper. So there are ways to do it. First, think about how you're going to quantitatively assess the performance. There's a great and it's subtle trick. if you do this and make chatbots about different topics, then you can think about what are the series of questions I'm going to use to grade this chatbot. If you want to grade GPT-4, that's incredibly hard. It's trying to answer every question in every language on every topic. You're not going to build a good assessment data set. However, if you're just trying to say, is this handling my HR policies correctly? You can do that. So build an assessment data sets so then you can measure if I change out to the newest component because I think it's better or cheaper or going to do something. Very easy to measure. Again, don't send everything. If someone's asking about the HR documentation, you don't need to use GPT-4. Go to the cheapest thing you can. It all comes back to this. Tier what you're using to match the performance needs as well as managing the cost, especially if you're going to scale with thousands and thousands of users. And the last thing, just because we have access to embedding models, these technologies have been around for a while. Last year, they step change with GPT 3.5. It came really easy, really good. But it doesn't mean you have to use it. So if you answer the same question, most people ask the same questions. Cache them. Return the cache. You don't need to look anything up. Cuts your bill down significantly, and apps get used. You get better answers. And then it actually lowers the cost over time instead of just generating and generating and generating. So just taking a step back, these are the challenges that we're seeing enterprises hit the most, and then some solutions that we've been focused on to try to address it. But there's one other point that I mentioned before. I think at its core, having many chatbots for different teams, combining the right guardrails, like for instance with finance or legal, I don't want it to be creative, but for marketing I do. So putting in the right guardrails in place to control that, adding logging to the whole system so you can monitor this, this is a really effective way to get value in an incremental fashion where each team can add on a new chatbot and it keeps getting better over time. Don't try to build, if you ask for budget to build a language model yourself and in 2 years it's going to be amazing and change the world, I really don't recommend that. The last thing, the CFO question. Since I think generative AI and the efficiency gains, they're meaningful to me personally because I really value my time. But a board, CFO, they're not going to care as much. Where we're seeing the most top-line value generated is combining traditional predictive modeling with generative to have an end-to-end experience. Let me give you one example, and then I'll stop because I've got 45 seconds left. Imagine you want to say, what's the likelihood this customer is interested in purchasing this thing? Or what's the likelihood my customer is going to cancel their cell phone plan with you, whatever it might be. We use a traditional predictive model to say, this is the probability. These are the aspects in their data that are likely to lead to that prediction. We pass that to the generative model to write an outreach saying, hey, I see that you might be interested in this product for these reasons. And it can have the right message to the right person at the right time and be incredibly prescriptive. And by connecting these two things, you can start to have the personalized outreach of what an exceptional customer experience might be, but tailored for everyone instead of it just being to individuals. Taking it a step further, working with hospitals, you can have the generative aspect read the hospital notes and then characterize different aspects, like what's the likelihood this person has this condition, predictive to classify it, and then generative to write doctor's notes back to them. We are doing that for surgeons now where they get the whole patient file and we give them a summary at the top of what might be most useful. They still have the whole thing, but after they read it, it's still nice to have that bluff on the top. And with that, I'll stop. 30 seconds over. Apologies. Thank you.